Hello again, YouTube. It is me, Ariel, and we are back with another video about trees. This week we are talking about the majestic, yet very common, Douglas fir. This Douglas fir was picked in mid-May, so it has lots of little baby new shoots growing out from it. And we will talk about that today. We will talk about how Douglas fir can improve your health, about how to make tea and elixirs from it, and some silly stories I picked up along the way. We are talking about Douglas fir today because it is probably the most proliferous and popular tree in the entire Pacific Northwest. Yes, all that alliteration I did do on purpose, and now I will stop. So, the Douglas fir, also called Pseudotsuga menziesii, that's a heck of a Latin name, so we're just going to call it a Douglas fir, is not even a real fir. It is a tree of its own kind, but like other trees that look like the Douglas fir, it is a conifer. This tree is so numerous in these parts that it's considered kind of a weed, but that doesn't mean it can't be special to us.
Unlike true firs, Douglas firs have cones that hang down instead of standing straight up like candlesticks. But in other ways they are so similar that they can be used pretty much the same herbally. In fact, almost all conifer needles, when they have new spring growth, are edible, with the notable exception of the poisonous yew. Douglas firs are found in the Pacific Northwest, the coastal states, from Canada to southern Oregon, thereabouts, and they are basically covering the entire mountain ranges of the Cascades and the Olympics. Douglas firs are possibly our largest lumber crop, and we make a lot of houses and wooden products out of them. Maybe even your pencils and paper were made from Douglas fir trees here in Washington State. Though this tree may be common, we do need to try to practice more sustainable uses of forest products because the tree takes so long to grow, like all big trees do. I love mythology and all manner of lore and legends, and so there is a local legend among the Native American peoples in this area that the Douglas fir actually has a story that having to do with mice. Alright, so once there was a hungry mouse who asked the Douglas fir for help. The winter was very cold and there just wasn't a lot of food to be found. The tree told him, just try some of these seeds and you'll be full. And so the mouse ate the seeds in the Douglas fir cones and he was fat and happy. He ran back to tell all his mouse friends, and soon an army of mice came back and ransacked all the Douglas fir cones. As you could imagine, this irritated the Douglas fir tremendously. So, as the mice were all getting in there and sneakily stealing all the seeds from his cones, the Douglas fir snapped all the pine cones shut. And to this day, you can see tiny little mice-sweetened tails coming out of each cone. And indeed, over 60% of the Douglas fir seeds that are in the cones every year are eaten by squirrels and mice and birds. The seeds are theoretically edible, but they're too small to be worth gathering. They're not like pine nuts, which are closely related, but big enough to make it worth the while of a human gatherer. First, I'm going to pick the Douglas fir tips, which is kind of a process. As you can see, these Douglas firs do grow in my yard, which I am very blessed for, but my chickens are constantly giving me a lot of flack and irritation. Maybe you can even see me fighting them off in this clip. So it took me like 10 minutes to harvest about a half a jar of these Douglas fir tips, which equivalent to about like 4 cups. There are many schools of thought about when is the best time to harvest plants, like leaves or flowers or whatever. I am harvesting these at 8:30 in the morning, and my reasoning is that they are just starting to fill up with the good yang sun energy, but it is not like the early morning and they are not full of dew. Because of their high vitamin C content, we are processing these Doug fir tips raw and fresh and not dried. Next thing, we will talk about how to make Fir Tip Tea. It is quite simple, like making any other herb tea, or what we call herbal tisane. Anyway, Making fir tip tea is as simple as pouring almost boiling water over the fir tips and then steeping it for like 5 minutes. Just like any herbal tea, super simple. The reason that we want to get the fir tip tea is because it has a lot of vitamin C and other good terpenes and lung healing properties. Vitamin C is found mostly in like raw and fresh foods because heat and time will degrade it. But that's okay in this case because when the heat degrades the vitamin C in the fir tips, it all leaches out into the water of the tea. So you're just drinking vitamin C tea basically. You just want to not overcook it. You want to not pour like fully boiling water on your tea, just like simmering water. This Douglas fir tip tea is so wonderful tasting, zesty, and zingy that I could easily drink it every day during the springtime when the fir tips are blooming. But what do you do if there are no longer fir tips available? It's just the older needles that aren't very good for you. They're too high in alkaloids, but you still want the benefits of the fir tip tea. Elixir is an alcohol and honey preparation that extracts a broad spectrum of healthful compounds, stores well, and tastes better than most medicine, in my humble opinion. Raw honey is a special preservative that is also an old-school folk remedy for fighting and preventing respiratory illness and allergies. We are going to steep a jar full of these fir tips in about 3/4 mixtured alcohol and 1/4 honey. And the raw honey I warmed up a little bit on the stove. So I put the jar of honey in a pan with a little water in it and just kind of heated that water very carefully so that the raw honey wouldn't be like a solid brick. And honestly, I could have heated it a little more, but I was nervous because I didn't want to like overheat my honey, or break the jar or anything messy like that. So next time I'm going to heat the honey a little more because as you can see when I'm pouring the honey in, it's kind of making a brick in the jar, but that's okay. I'm gonna shake it violently again and again. See me shaking it so much, and eventually the alcohol will break up the honey and mix it all happily, and you get this beautiful vibrant green fir tip elixir. And so this is going to sit in my dark, cool herbal closet for like a month. They say 4 to 6 weeks is best for an elixir, and then I'm going to strain it out and have this wonderful bright green alcohol honey elixir. Douglas fir is full of essential oil or terpenes that are said to help us deal with emotions, especially grief, and have a very grounding effect. Grounding meaning balancing and emotionally stabilizing. I know this sounds like pseudoscience or metaphysics, but think about this. If the terpenes in the Douglas fir help open up our lungs, aka bronchodilating effect, then wouldn't that help you deal with your emotions better if you could get a full breath of air?
Thank you guys again for watching my video. Don't forget to like and comment and subscribe. All the YouTube things. Am I even saying all the things? Oh yeah, you're supposed to hit the bell for notifications. That would be cool because then you'd know when I release videos. And yes, because usually I do it on Fridays or Saturdays, but you never know. It's nice to have that notification. Anyway, I will stop talking and I will sign off and see you next week. Bye!